going on, everybody? Welcome back to let's be a long-awaited post-game show. Yeah, we're gonna talk about a lot of things here tonight. Like I said, we're not gonna go into like a full in-depth breakdown. Just kind of get my reactions and stuff like that. Talk about a lot of stuff as well, some stats as well. If you guys, and we'll open up to some questions, so like a Q&A session, that kind of thing. But before you get to it, if you guys new, make sure you hit the like button, also hit that subscribe button. Definitely share this out, get some more people up in here. With that being said, yeah, go Birds. Yeah. So overall, my initial thoughts on this, I need a Xanax. It's like that every single goddamn week. I need a goddamn Xanax every single week with this team. But hey, they always find a way to get it done. But overall, what's going on, Daniel the Stripe Coat? What's good? What's going on, Star Wars 99? Appreciate you guys that are coming in to this bit of a post-game show. Like I said, we'll probably spend a good 30, 40 to 45 minutes if we even go to an hour. Overall, yeah. So overall, it was a nail biter, I would say, but not to what people were expecting. But I really never expected us to go to overtime with the Buffalo Bills. To be fair, I'll give the Bills the benefit of the doubt. Look, they're a good team. Don't get me wrong. But quite honestly, it's just one of those things that's like, and as most of y'all said in the chat, is the Eagles will always find ways to win. Yeah, I mean, in case in point, Jalen Hurts pretty much walked it off. 38-34 was the final score, or obviously 37. But other way, it's whatever. Still, so you know what I meant. But at the same time, it's just one of those things. I just, boy, like I said, I'm not really been facetious, but if you watch a lot of Eagles games this year, it's either there's a lot of things. There's a couple things you probably could use right about now. Most people that I know need probably the alcohol or a Xanax because holy crap, that was too close for comfort. I always say, but all in all, I thought both QBs actually played pretty well, mostly from Josh Allen's side of things. Overall, Josh Allen went 21 for 51, 339, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Allen, overall, I thought actually played pretty well. I think obviously outplayed Jalen Hurts, but at the same time, his biggest bugaboo, I think a lot of people don't really talk about, is his inability to win in overtime games. And I do have here in my notes that Allen, with this loss in overtime, makes it 0-6 so far, a career lifetime in overtime. But overall, this season is 0-2. Obviously, the first loss came back in week 1 against the Jets. The Bills, they were, like I said, out with their 2 top quarters. They didn't have their top linebacker in Matt Milano, Daquan Jones. Obviously, we talked about that too. We talked about. Me and Tyler talked about on the last couple of episodes of the All-Star Sports Show, which you'll see another episode coming up this week, this Thursday evening. So, guys, want to check that out because, like I said, we'll be talking about most of the games around the league. Jalen Hurts on the other side went 18 for 31, 200 yards even, 3 touchdowns and a pick, obviously with 2 rushing touchdowns. So overall, finished with 5 total touchdowns with 1 pick. Yeah, look, Hurts is one of those guys. Like, yeah, obviously still dealing with that bum knee. That's Drewski. I would say the Bills are frauds, but there is a case that you have to put them in that conversation. That it's always, like I said, I would say they always will make the playoffs, but in this case, like in case, like I said, in terms of overtime, the Bills can never get it done. You saw back in the last, since 2018, the Bills can't get it done for whatever reason with under Josh Allen, who's been right now currently the league in picks. Overall, and this, speaking of which, with Josh Allen, like I said, I do appreciate Josh Allen from a talent standpoint. I think he's still a solid QB. But at some point, it's okay, so the way I can look at this one of different ways is the fact that when are we going to start holding a guy like Josh Allen to a higher standard where you got a guy like Jalen Hurts who's been under a lot of scrutiny. Lamar's been under scrutiny. Hell, we got Patrick Holmes always gets swept under the rug for whatever goddamn reason after the Chiefs lost to the Philadelphia Eagles last week. But like I said, I'm not really going to harp on too much, but I will say there is a conversation that needs to be had with the Buffalo Bills. And I should tell you right then and there that I think Rasul Dogs has gotten better in terms of his play styles. And I know there's a lot of an Eagles fan myself who's seen him play over here. Wasn't that great. But overall, it's a win nonetheless. But it really does. I don't know how many times we can. It'd be a nice, easy win. Will be suffice. The only easy win in this as people say, the quote unquote gauntlet was a 31-17 victory over the Miami Dolphins, where the Eagles somehow came away with no penalties, even though Les Brothers should have been, 3-4 penalties in that game. And in this one, there should have been at least 2 or 3, I would say. Obviously, that should have been a PI on Slay. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to make no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That was a clear PI. There's a lot of things that... And I think what hurts the Bills at times, not just because they stink in overtime. Most times than not, they always will find a way to shoot themselves in the foot, whether it's not in terms, and that's going to be on Josh Allen too. Missing throws, really can't get the running game going if that's the case. Even though Buffalo's not really known for the running game, it's mostly from all aerial assault, kind of what Cliff Kingsbury brought with the Arizona Cardinals. If that makes any sense, but at the same time, I do think the Eagles, they always find a way to win. Obviously, it's one of our. It's kind of the best part of facing with adversity. You always find a way to win. You don't back down when your back's against the wall. You'll find a way to nut up or shut up, and that's kind of what the Eagles did. Obviously, unfortunately, did have to take it go to overtime. But at the same time, overall, I've liked what I've seen, but at the same time, I got a ton of questions. Brian Johnson in particular, for those who have been around or follow me on social media, mostly on Twitter. If you guys should check me on Twitter, the link is in the description. I have shared some of my displeasures with Brian Johnson and the way how he conducts things as an offensive coordinator from a coaching standpoint, and I was very surprised I get a lot of backlash for what I always say about him. It's like, because look, I've never coached a game of football in my life. Sure, you could hold that against over my head, but I still coach nonetheless. I can see from a coaching perspective a bad coach from a good coach. And in case of Brian Johnson, I still don't trust him with this offense because I do think this offense could be a lot better what they're showing, especially this year. I think this offense could have been a lot better with Shane Steichen being here. Like I know we're not going to relive in the past, but I want to bring this up because I think a lot of some Eagles fans could, myself included, we always had this conversation where it's like, what if Sirianni and how we actually try to find a way to stop or at least do something to at least keep not Sirianni, but Shane Steichen here, but also at the same time, you could let Gannon walk and lose. And it would be interesting to see a matchup with Steichen as the offensive coordinator still here, and Sean Desai as the defense coordinator. Speaking with Desai, though, and yeah, I know I give Desai a lot of crap too, but some of it's for some of them for different reasons because I'm tired with this zone concept bullshit that this team runs, I would say. Because for me, it's one of the most flawed type of plays that even if you play this shit in Madden, you can see how flawed that shit is. But that's besides the point. But the one thing I've always well respected with Sean Desai is his ability to make adjustments when adjustments are needed. Case in point, yes, I know there was some problems. Obviously, part later in the second half, when you had the Bills, unfortunately, when you took away their passing game, you had to make the force to rely on the running game a little bit, which I don't mind that. When you take away their passing game, that means you're really pretty much doing pretty well, especially the secondary. But I think overall, I think this team just like I said, we're not playing our best football, but then again, it really, and I would say, look, I don't expect any perfect wins, and if you think that otherwise, I don't know what to say to you, because for me, I like when you're playing against with adversity, and that's what the Eagles have shown each and every week. Look, I know we played against the Commanders twice, and yeah, they gave us freaking problems, but what division round doesn't give you fucking problems? It gives you fits. The Cowboys, same thing in terms of division rival, they gave us fits, but we pulled out a 28-23 victory over them. Currently right now, we're pretty much, we're the first team to clinch a playoff spot, so to speak, which is great to see. And at the same time, going back to my thing on Jalen Hurts, overall, 22-3 in his last 25 games. Has won 14 straight against teams with a 500 or more a better record. It really is, Ryan. I will say, the amount of bubble screens and the QB draws. Now, I will say that some QB draws in certain situations have worked to perfection. Case in point, obviously, with Jalen Hurts walking off on the Buffalo Bills on the final, I think the final play, I think it was inside the 20 to 25 yard. I think it might be inside the 20. So let me know in the chat. And then also you rely on the running game a little bit, which you got to do that a lot more. And that really explains your playbook a lot of most times than not. And that's the thing too. That's why I've liked what I've seen from Swift, even though that's where I want to see him get more than just 80 yards. But then again, that really kind of tells you that. Also, not having Lane Johnson really does show that, well, not having Lane Johnson at the right tackle position really does kind of really, I would say not set this team back a ton, but I would say it does hinder what you can do on the offensive line. Regardless, though, I mean, Kelsey, he's got to get, obviously, those 2 false starts were a little bit costly. Nonetheless, I've liked what I've seen out of this Eagles team so far. Like I said, it depends on who you're asking. If you need alcohol or a Xanax, anything to calm yourself down, because each and every week, it's been like that this entire year. Regardless, it's been a heck of a ride for this team, whether bound through a lot of injuries in the first half of the year. Boy, and that was a bit of a up and down roller coaster, I guess you could say. But at the same time, it's and pretty much at the same time, yeah. And that's the thing too. Like no one really and look and see that's what Jalen Hurts I've always will respect about him. No matter what type of success he has, they're still going to find a way to bring him down. But then again, I think Jalen Hurts doesn't give 2 shits of what you think, and that's kind of what he showed. Like after I think one play you show him on the sideline. I think it was there. I think the last 3 and outs. Or I think no, I'm sorry, that was on the game tying field goal by Jake Elliott, who, by the way, phenomenal pickup the last couple of years off the Bengals practice squad. Dude has been nothing but short of fantastic during his time here. And I would not be surprised if Howie actually will give him the highest paid contract, especially for kickers nowadays. I would throw the bag at him. Quite honestly, I think Jake Elliott has proved his worth with this franchise, and people say he's going to be the greatest. I would say, if you're talking about at the last few years he's been here, sure, but all time, I don't think he's really touching David Akers. If I'm going to be completely honest with y'all, David Akers is just one of a kind, that kind of thing. But I do think Jake Elliott is second behind, with David Akers, just because of how been clutch he's been the last couple of years. Obviously, and yeah, the Eagles, and like I said, obviously the Eagles have never had any perfect wins. Well, if you take care of last year, take away last year, but I mean, look, 2018, they never had any perfect wins. They very scraped by some teams, like case in point, the 2018 Chicago Bears, where they actually had a competent team together. They went via the double doink, and well, we all know how that happened. If you're a Bears fan, you gave Cody Parkey a lot of death threats. You had the entire city of Philadelphia being a little petty. have it all lit up in buildings and the skyscrapers down in Philadelphia. We don't know how that really. Arco, look, lucky or not, we still find a ways to win. And look, we're still look. Whether like us, hate us, we don't care. We always find ways to win, and that's the thing I've always respected about this team. That's why a lot of people don't like how people say, "Oh, you should really blow out teams in dominant fashion." But what's the fun in not facing adversity? But at the same time, when you're blowing out teams, most times than not, you get complacent. And I've seen teams where, case in point, where not the Cowboys, but I'll say like teams like the Niners. I've seen a couple of times I've seen them win the Niners. This was like a handful of years ago when I was a lot younger. But I've seen Niners teams where they would blow out teams, but they're always you've seen them always seen teams on the opposite side find ways to claw back, and we've seen teams choke, and that's kind of the downside for me. At the same time, where my nitpick of blowing teams out in dominant fashion, yes, for one side of things, yeah, it might look pretty on the stat sheet. But the downside is at the same time, that's when you get really complacent. Your defense doesn't. If your defense wants to show up, that sort of thing. And at the same time, we're coming off a short week after just coming off a win over an Arrowhead, which is not an easy play to play. But I mean, overall, it's just one of those things. It really is. It's kind of I would say, and yeah, I mean, last week Hurts had really his best game to date, which I know a lot of people are going to hang that over. That's the thing. That's what's going to people are going to hang a lot of things over Jalen Hurts did. But then again, Hurts doesn't get, like I said, Hurts doesn't get two flying fucks. What most of y'all think. But in the end, like I said, I got to give a lot of credit to the Buffalo Bills for pushing us to the limit. And yeah, unfortunately, we had to force overtime with them, which should never have been the case, but that's besides the point. And it's kind of funny. I've seen like a lot of Cowboys fans, not you, Arku, but I know you're a good one. Already kind of bitching and complaining about, certain calls were not going the Bills' way, yada, yada, yada. And that's the thing, too. Like the rest, and this is where I'm going to get this off my chest for a little bit, because I put this down on my Twitter. It doesn't matter what fan base of if you still lose despite getting penalized, the ref excuse is nothing but a shadow of bullshit. Yeah, yes, there are certain arguments you can be made, like the Miami game. There's a lot of calls that should have been called, but in the end, we've seen that around the league. No matter it's here in Philly, whether it's in Dallas, technically Arlington, Buffalo, Cincinnati. I mean, all teams have to deal with it. And it's a stupid, lame-ass excuse. Because if you're just going to be, it's pretty much an excuse that if you're be a sorry loser, just take the L and move on. It's that simple. Look, I know a lot of personal Bills fans, but I really do think this is, like I say, going back to my thing with Josh Allen, the overtime, that's not just for Josh Allen's side of things, but that's kind of the biggest bugaboo with the Buffalo Bills is the fact that they stink in overtime. And you really can't blame Josh Allen for that. No matter how good Josh Allen plays, but if his wide receivers can't do much, the running game, you can't get the running game going. Defense sometimes was non-existent, which now at times the Bills defense was a little bit playing, I think it's a little bit prevent. And we're seeing, yeah, it was a nail biter, sure. But that's what I like about it. It makes you get on the edge of your seat, and that's kind of for me, because that's kind of the experience I have in my career. Not just because, I'm still playing it. I have never played a single down of football, but you kind of get the idea. But I think overall, it's still a win. It's a win nonetheless. But it's going to be funny that Skip's going to find a way to make excuses. The fact that say the Dallas Cowboys are a much better team than the Eagles. I'm going to really touch on that too, because like I said, we can go this about all night if I wanted to. But the thing with that is the fact that, yeah, the Dallas Cowboys, when we look at from the talent side, yeah, sure, there's some some spots they're better at, but they're not a fully better team than the Eagles. But at the same time, the Cowboys, they played two Super Bowl caliber teams, Philadelphia and the San Francisco 49ers. Both teams are has a above 500 record. But at the same time, you also played the Cowboys also played many teams with a combined record of 25 wins to 28 losses. So you're telling me that you play weak competition, but when a Super Bowl caliber team or a playoff caliber team comes your way, you completely disappear. It doesn't make sense. It never really makes sense. And we look at the rest of the Cowboys schedule. I mean, outside of they swept the Commanders, they swept the Giants, which that should be easy work for us and Dallas. But they're also going to play Miami, Buffalo, Detroit, and they also got Seattle, who I think Dallas should beat Seattle because I think Seattle's just one of those teams that's and like if you're talking from how Hurts carries himself and how he's been bringing this team to many wins, absolutely. But I don't think he's going to have some step competition. That's for sure. With other guys like CJ Stroud, I think he's up there in terms of MVP conversation. Myles Garrett, that's for sure. Tyreek Hill, you can't put that up there. Can't keep Tyreek out, and if you do, we got problems. Because Tyreek Hill, the way he's been playing, I'm not going to be surprised and he's already on pace to have a 2,000 yard type of season, and that's just me. But I do think Hurts right now, currently, if you look at the the betting favorites, I think Hurts is still the heavy favorite to win the MVP. But is he going to win by a landslide? Absolutely not. I do think there's going to be some guys that are going to get some votes. Like I said, CJ Stroud, I think definitely your offensive rookie of the year. I think it's going to defensive. If you're going to ask me who's the defensive rookie of the year is, it's either going to go down to Jalen Carter and who's the other one I'm thinking of? Oh crap. I just saw him watching play like a couple of weeks ago, and I can't think of his freaking name at the moment. Oh, Devin Witherspoon. That's who I'm thinking of. Jesus. Yeah. But I think Carter, has played a much better season. I would say from a number standpoint, and a very few limited snaps he's played, or the rotations he's been playing with this franchise. And yet somehow it's kind of very funny to see a lot of teams kicking themselves from not taking Jalen Carter in the draft and just let us fall in the slabs. But I think overall, really, like say the season ended right now. I think Hurts definitely takes the MVP, and that's kind of where my other thing I want to talk about, where my nitpick is with this award. I'm tired of look. I appreciate some quarterbacks get it, but I want to see any other skill position outside of a quarterback gets it, which is so fucking stupid. That's kind of where like I said, look, I would nitpick a lot of things, but the MVP is one of them. Now, I don't voice it on social media, but I will say, I've talked to within a group of friends of mine where we always have this conversation. It's like, it really boggles my mind how the MVP is always cable to quarterbacks. And yeah, rightfully so, man. This is kind of the most important position. But at the same time, you got guys like Tyreek Hill's putting up some fantastic numbers from the wide receiver position. You got Derrick Henry in terms of running backs. I mean, Myles Garrett from the defensive end of the football. Nick Bosa, you could probably throw in there too. Run CMC, for Christ's sakes. Like, there's a lot of names you could throw into the MVP conversation. That's not a quarterback. That is actually more willing or worth having a conversation with. But I think overall, I would say it's one of those things. Look, at the end of the day, if Hurts doesn't get the MVP, and he does let's say hypothetically takes the Super Bowl, it's better than let's be real. I think a Super Bowl MVP is a lot better than the regular season MVP, regardless of what anybody thinks. Because, like I said, it's individual awards is one thing, But if you win a championship, it's a whole nother thing. We've seen it a lot of times. Case in point, let's bring this perfect analogy. Guy like Nikola Jokic in the NBA. Obviously, last year you had Embiid taken. What does Nikola Jokic does with that team, with the Nuggets? They win a championship. He doesn't really give a shit, give a shit or two with the individual awards, but at the same time, it's just the way it is. But overall, now I'm pretty sure there's gonna probably be people asking me, are the Bills in trouble? Well, that remains to be seen because right now they are 6-6. I think they're still good for second in the AFC East. I think they might be leading the AFC East. Let me double check that because I cannot remember the life of me. But if you look at, let me know if the if because I literally cannot remember the life of me. But let me double check. Nope. But I think overall, look, as much as I know this Eagles team wants to give me freaking health problems, whether it wants to drive me batshit crazy at times per week by week basis, or okay, so they're good for second. Thank you, because I swear, I think I swear the. Let me take a. So we're looking at, like I said, we'll talk. Like I said, me and Tar will talk more on the NFL on Thursday for the All-Star Sports Show, which we'll hold every Thursday at 6:00 Eastern Time. Whether we'll talk about some NFL news, that sort of thing, and NFL talk, NBA, MLB, WNBA, if you're into that. So a little bit bits and pieces of NHL and college sports. Yeah, I mean, so far, it's really looking like if I'm going to, like I said, I think I said this before the season started too, which I would say we have some time. So I'll probably stay here for like another minute or so before we call it a night. But overall, I've always said from this onstart, this is the division division the Bills to lose, and right now as we're seeing it, it's Miami's an opportunity to take that division. Now it's going to be interesting to see, can they really do anything in the playoffs? Because right now, the biggest knock on Miami, can they really beat a 500 team? Because right now, the only team that they beat that's quote unquote 500 was the Raiders, and the Raiders were not that great of a 500 team. I'm going to be completely honest. And yeah, really, boy, and I mean, as it stands, you're top of it's kind of a wide open for the number one seed in the AFC. Whether you have a team like Kansas City, Jacksonville, Baltimore, probably Miami would be an interesting case to have for the number one seed in the AFC, because it really is. When you look at this year, the AFC. Look, I know the AFC has better talent wise than the NFC, but the NFC, I don't know, it's really weird that both conferences are kind of weak. But I know the NFC always has been weak for the last couple of years. But at the same time, I don't know. Maybe that's just weird. But outside of that, it's going to be interesting to see the conversation that for Hurts for MVP. But then again, like I said, there's some more guys you could probably, like I said, you could throw up there. Run CMC, Tyreek Hill, Myles Garrett. Throw Brock Purdy up in there. I think he's going to get some talks for MVP. But outside of that, good win by the Eagles over the Bills. Like I said, it's going to be interesting to watch see the Bills going forward. Because right now we're probably seeing some few AFC teams not make the playoffs. The Bills, or not the Bills, but the Bengals is one of them in particular, which is kind of crazy. But like I said, if you guys are new, appreciate you guys are hanging out with me. If you guys are new, let me get to get to that. I don't think it's his last season. I'd be crazy. Look, I think Hill is definitely going to get some MVP conversation. But the downside of that, Damian, is the MVP is more suited to the quarterback position, which, like I said, that's where my huge problem I have with this award. It's like you're the only time the non-skilled and non-quarterback won the damn thing was back in 2012 with Adrian Peterson, was still in this at the top of his game back in 2012. But like I said, it's definitely going to be going to a quarterback. It's definitely going to either Hurt. Like I said, I'm not really saying that Hurts is going to be. I do think Hurts is definitely going to be, but like I said, we'll see how that really plays out. But like I said, I'm not really going to. Like I said, I could have this another conversation. Oh, I could talk a whole like at least good 10 to 15. That's weird. I think Hill's still too young to fucking retire. But then again, we have seen young players retire. I mean, case in point, Barry Sanders. Well, and rightfully so, because the Lions were kind of more incompetent. But like I said, that's beside the point. But it's going to be interesting to see if that is the case. But like I said, I want to wait to see how this season plays out. I'm not going to get too ahead of myself. But overall, if you guys are new, make sure you hit the like button, hit that subscribe button. We should turn that notification bell so you guys will not miss any new videos dropping or other means how it go live. And with that being said, have a good night, guys.